looking for the button at the top right, which says View, and you can switch between Gallery View and Speaker View. To read these instructions, you probably want to be in Speaker View. I'm also going to quickly share a link to these slides in the chat. And these instructions are on slide 4. So the simple process that you're going to go through in your breakout rooms is you take it in turns to be the question asker and the question answerer. The person who's asking the questions starts by asking, for you, this meeting is shaped like what? Listen to the answer and then ask the following 2 questions in any order, as many times as you like. In these questions, you can notice that they've got an X. And that space, the X space, is for you to put in some of the other person's words as closely as you can remember them. Shall I show you what I mean? Ian, would you be willing to be the volunteer for a moment? You need to unmute yourself. Yep,
all ready, and the dogs are gone.
Excellent. So for you, this meeting is shaped like what?
A cloud was my first thought.
What kind of cloud?
Well, quite a strange cloud with things in it. So I then moved to thinking of it like tutti frutti ice cream. So it had all the richness, but had different dots in, which I think were all the people in the cloud in my tutti frutti ice cream. It was very different people.
Is there anything else about dots?
Well, dots is strangely, when I thought of dots, I then thought of them as little television screens as well in my tutti frutti ice cream. It got a little bit surreal, actually. Sorry.
What kind of television screens?
Actually, I think it was fractals of the screen I'm seeing now. So there was all the people are in their little boxes, and then I had a box around my tutti frutti ice cream cloud. So I had a big box and then lots of little boxes, and somehow we were all connected in that.
Thank you for that excellent demonstration. Oh, by the way, the reason I chose Ian is because I tested his internet connection earlier, and I knew that he was probably going to stay connected for long enough to do a quick demonstration. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Do you get the idea, everybody? If anybody can unmute themselves or give me a reaction to let me know that they've understood the instructions, that would be really helpful to me. I'm struggling a bit without visual or auditory feedback. So we've got a couple of thumbs up. That's good to me. Okay, so I'm going to put you into groups of about 3. You're going to have a total of 5 minutes plus the 60-second countdown to do this activity as many ways round as you're able to. Let's see what happens. And when you come back, I really look forward to hearing actual voices from a few of you telling me what happened when you were asked these questions. Just checking that most people are here in the breakout groups. Let's see what happens. I'm going to hit the button, fingers crossed. Opening the rooms now. If you arrived a little late, I'm just assigning people to rooms now, people who arrived a bit late. Hopefully you'll find yourself with some people who will help you to understand what we're doing, fingers crossed. If you're able to join the breakout rooms, please do. You'll have a much richer experience if you do these activities than if you don't. So what's happening at the moment is that people are in breakout rooms doing an activity. I'm hoping that there's nobody sitting in a breakout room on their own. If you've been assigned a breakout room and you're not able to go, fair enough. But if you were able to go, then I'm sure the people who you'll find in the room will explain what we're up to. So do please join if you can.
Sorry, I'm not able to join. I'm multitasking. I'm at work, so bear with me.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Hello, Juliet. How are you doing? Hello, Juliet. What's happening at the moment is that people are out in breakout rooms doing an activity. I'm going to add you to a breakout. If you're able to join, please do. They've just got a couple more minutes of this activity to go. Hello, Nawaz. People are out in breakout rooms at the moment doing an activity. They'll be coming back in a couple of minutes. I'm going to add you to a group. If you'd like to join, you'd be very welcome to join. And I'm sure the people that you'd find there will explain what's going on. Otherwise, just hang fire and something will happen. If you're just joining, we are out in breakout rooms at the moment. People are doing an activity, the activity that you can see behind me, and they will be coming back into the room in about a minute. Do just wait here and we'll continue once they rejoin in about 58 seconds.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's nice to see you. I'm really struggling without any visual feedback from people because everybody's got their cameras off. It's really lovely to see you. Ola, is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
Very great. Very good. Oh, Olalekan. Yeah. How are you?
I'm all the better for seeing you.
I know. I know. I mean, I was in a meeting earlier on, but I've been trying to understand more about clean language, because in my coaching class, they speak a lot about clean language. So I apologize, I missed some part of this.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll answer lots of questions as we go through the time. Fingers crossed. And what I'm hoping is that the first activity has given a bunch of people their first experience of being asked clean language questions. Thank you, those people who've turned their cameras on. It's really excellent to see a few more faces. It makes me feel more relaxed. I'm not talking into the void. So I would love to know, what was your experience when you were asked these questions? If you've got your camera on, just either wave or unmute yourself and speak. If you prefer, then you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and I will call on you by name. One of the things I didn't say, and probably should have said at the very beginning of this session, is if I call on you to speak and you just don't want to, just say pass, I'll move on. In this Zoomy environment, it's much harder for me to get feedback to know who wants to speak, whether those kind of physical movement things aren't present. So I need to go with my gut feel and hope for the best. If I call on you and you don't want to speak, just say pass. Karuna.
Hi.
What was your experience when you were asked the questions?
So my pardon, I just happened to jump into the meeting and got pushed into the meeting room. So I did say that it's a pair, solely because I don't know what the topic was about. It was so wide open about the whole thing. So now we're narrowing it down to, having to symbolize in narrowness.
Interesting, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who had a different experience when they were, particularly somebody who was asked these questions? Ayo?
Okay, I'll share my experience with you. So I was blank at the beginning of it all. I mean, what is this meeting shaped like? It's a question that never been asked before. So the three of us, we were passing the buck to one another. But at the end of the day, one of us said, this meeting is like a dash. Okay? There is no letter I can use to describe a dash. The strike.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second person said that it's like a big circle. Circle, right? With a lot of smaller circles around it. Okay, so at that point, we've broken the ice, and the third person said that it's like an infinite bubble. Okay, so that is an infinite bubble that is transparent. Now, so the next question got asked: is there anything else about it all? And I said, it's like the dash connected the infinite bubble and the big circle. So the dash is a connector of the two spaces. So that was my experience.
Thank you. So an infinite bubble,
circle
and circles, and a dash. They were your three in your group of three.
Right.
Thank you. Really lovely example of how they're sort of similar in some ways, but also different. And one of the things about these questions is how they tease out the difference between people. So I'm going to ask once more for someone else to speak about what was their experience in that breakout room. Who had a different or a similar experience to Aya? Ursula?
Hello.
Hello.
So from our team, the other person had said circle, thinking the outcome of the meeting will be beneficial. And from my stance, I was thinking uneven because I didn't know what to expect, or rather I couldn't anticipate the outcome of the meeting. So I thought uneven, maybe that would change at the end of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. By the way, my apologies in advance for everybody's name I don't pronounce correctly. I'm at the edge of my capability, as you can probably notice. So we've heard 3 different people talk about what happened in those breakout rooms. We've heard 3 different experiences, and we've heard lots of different metaphors for this meeting. Let me say a little bit more about metaphor and why it's important. Metaphors, by metaphor, I mean when a human being compares one kind of thing to another kind of thing. And that includes synonyms and parallels and metonymy and a whole bunch of technical things. But basically the idea of metaphor is you compare one kind of thing to another kind of thing. And metaphors are absolutely everywhere in our language. So if we think, for example, about waterfall and agile, each of those is a metaphor. Waterfall is the idea that, somebody gives the instructions at the top of the organization and they flow down. Agile, of course, might mean that you're very bendy, that you're good at yoga. But my guess is that your agile is different to that agile. One of my colleagues, Pierre Nice, who some of you may have met, did a really interesting piece of work where he asked about 100 agile coaches, what kind of agile is your agile? And he got at least 70 different replies. One of the things that I find interesting about that is that we who are in the agile business in one kind of way or another are all about, working together to propagate agile in organizations, in countries, in companies, all those kind of things. But actually, we don't agree about what kind of agile is our agile. And that's because our metaphors are superficially similar, but at a deeper level, they are all different. Let me try another quick experiment with you. Everybody think about a flower. Any kind of flower. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to write it in the chat, but don't press the return button yet. So, what kind of flower are you thinking of? Please write it in the chat, post it to everybody, but don't hit the return button until I say go. So you've got 30 seconds to write it in the chat. How are we doing? Are we more or less ready? I'm going to say, please press return. Let's see how many different things we got in the chat. Thank you. What a fabulous example. So we've got a bunch of different things. We've got a lily, we've got a sunflower, we've got a daisy, we've got a rose, a rose, a rose. We've got a sunflower, we've got a sunflower, we've got a hibiscus, we've got a lily, we've got a rose, we've got a rose, we've got a daisy, we've got a sun. So we can see that there are some things emerging that are similar. Now I need to find two people who can at least open their microphone and talk, who've both got rows. So let's see. Ao and Harrison and Lucy and Akin or Akin, Aid S. Could any or all of you please open your microphones and say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Excellent. So we've got two people, at least two people we can hear. Was that Lucy? I heard
Yeah.
as well as, yeah. Okay, so Lucy, what kind of rose is your rose?
It's a red rose.
A red rose. And Ao, what kind of rose is your rose?
Okay, it's going to be a bit of a story. Okay, so when you mentioned that we should think about a flower, what came to my mind was rose.
Mm-hmm.
As you go on in the conversation, I started thinking about white rose or red rose, white rose or red rose. Okay, that was it.
So you're a white rose or a red rose? White rose or red rose?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Lucy, is there anything else about your red rose?
I think it's beautiful. It's protected by thorns, but yet beautiful on top. The color is catchy to the eye.
Beautiful, protected by thorns, the colours catching to the eye. Ao, is there anything else about your rose?
It's amazing. Well crafted, beautiful creature.
Is there anything else about that?
No.
And Lucy, is there anything else about your rose? Lucy, you're muted again. I don't know whether that was intentional.
It's the most sought out flower on Valentine's Day.
The most sought out flower on Valentine's Day. Thank you. Thank you both of you for that lovely demonstration. So you notice that as we use these clean language questions, what kind of X and is there anything else about X? We tease out the differences between two things that are superficially similar. Comments, questions, observations. Who has anything to say about what they just heard? And I'm quite happy to hear any comments in the chat as well, because I appreciate not everybody can open their microphones and say anything. Ian, go ahead.
What strikes me even about a rose is you think people could take fairly obvious to me approach, say it's a closed rose, it's an open rose, it's a red rose. But actually when, was it Lucy was saying my rose is beautiful and it's protected by thorns, that's a completely different angle that I never really thought of myself. And you think, oh yeah, and you just think, how interesting that you get so much variety in the answers beyond the yes, no, up, down, and your own thinking is not challenged, it's added to.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. Having done this activity with lots and lots of groups over the years, I find it absolutely fascinating that it's always, I hear something different I'm not expecting. I often hear something similar, so I nearly always hear red rose or yellow sunflower, but not all, but there's always something new. I think this is the first time someone's mentioned Valentine's Day, for example. Anu, was there anything you were going to say? I think I saw your microphone open.
Oh, not at all. I had internet issue. Can you imagine in Dallas? So I just joined back in.
Okay. So we were just talking about how these clean language questions can really help to tease out differences between different people's understanding of a common word like flower. But the questions were particularly designed to explore metaphors. So they work for anything, but they're particularly designed for metaphors. And metaphors, in particular, can be very useful to explore when we're thinking about things like the shapes of teams the shapes of working groups, the shapes of organizations. Let me show you another quick example. So these pictures behind me, I've just harvested a few pictures from both Zoom and Microsoft Teams, which indicate some of the metaphors that people are using to think about their online meetings. So the first one is from the far one is from Zoom's new immersive view, where they're thinking about a Zoom meeting as being like a big classroom with lots of children sitting in rows. Another one that is from immersive view is this gallery. So they're thinking of people in a Zoom meeting as being like pictures on the wall of a gallery. I find that super weird. I can't understand that metaphor at all. Someone else thinks that in this case, Microsoft Teams meeting is like a farmyard full of llamas, or are they alpacas? And someone else thinks, so I'm trying to work out how to point at these pictures, someone else thinks that their Microsoft Teams meeting is full of random connections. So there are different rooms all connected using Microsoft Teams. And each of these metaphors for the Zoom meeting has particular restrictions that it places on how people think. If you think that a Zoom meeting is always going to be like a top-down classroom, people will do certain things. They will expect that the teacher is just going to talk at them for an hour and that they can join in or not, as they prefer. If, on the other hand, that you think that your Zoom meeting is like a farmyard, then you're probably going to start shouting at some point. The metaphor makes a difference. And it makes a really big difference when it comes to thinking about teams in this new environment of people being mostly online, but some people going back to work in offices in different parts of the world. We're now connecting different offices. Some people are at home, some people are in co-working spaces, some people are in the office. And I think that when we explore our metaphors for that, we will discover some really interesting things about the way we all think about our teams and the way we work. I'm pausing for comments or questions before sending you off into another activity. Yeah, so Simona says, it makes me think we've all got a different experience of even the same things. They're never actually the same. You're absolutely right, Simona. Everybody's living in a different reality at some level. It's fascinating when you think that, you know, no two people are actually having the same experience, even when we're all sitting together in the same physical space. And so much more when we're not in the same physical space, when we're all in distributed spaces. I'm going to invite you now to dive into a different activity. We will still be using clean language, but now let's get focused on your teams and the shape of your team or teams. My invitation is that you take a moment now to think about a specific team, your team, or one of your teams, or a team that you know about. Initially, in the privacy of your own mind, go through these following questions with me. What kind of team is the team you're thinking about? And when it's that kind of team, is there anything else about your team? Again, these are questions with no right or wrong answers. It's whatever it is for you. And when it's that kind of team, and there's that other thing about your team, does your team have a size or a shape? Most teams have a size. Does yours have a shape as well as a size? And when it's that size, and perhaps it has that shape, and it's that kind of team, and all the other things you've thought about your team, that team is like what? Please write down or draw for yourself your answer to that question. Your team is like what? And we're going to use your answers, your writing or your drawing, in the next activity. The next activity, we're simply going to repeat the activity we did earlier. Let me explain it once again. You're going to be in groups. You're going to take it in turns to be the questioner and the listener. And there may also be an observer or observers if you've got 3 people. Divide up the time between however many active participants you have. So typically, you might have one questioner asking questions for about 2 minutes and one person answering for about 2 minutes. At the end of the time, then go to the next person. The idea is you start by asking, your team is like what? You listen to the answer, and then you find out more about that answer using these 2 questions, and ideally only these 2 questions, no other questions and no other words. The questions are, what kind of X, where X is one of the other person's words, and is there anything else about X, where X is one of the other person's words? Once again, I've popped you into groups of about 3. There will probably be some people who don't join. If you can't join, I do understand it's not practical for everybody. Some people are basically in listening mode because they're at work and so on. Something weird just happened to my breakout rooms. I'll just try that again. Okay, fingers crossed. So I'm going to give you a total of 6 minutes. That's 5 minutes plus a 1-minute countdown timer. See if you can get everybody to have 90 seconds or so in a hot seat. Let's see what happens. And when you come back, let's hear from a few more people about the experience of being asked these questions. Something has just happened once again to my breakout rooms. Is one of the other co-hosts
Judy, do you want me to
changing
create
the
it for you?
breakout?
No? Do you want me to open the breakout room?
No. Let me hit the button now before anything else happens. Opening the rooms. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I can't, we can't see any breakout room.
So something very odd is happening.
Something is wrong with Zoom. Oh,
No,
now
they are
I
now
can see.
open.
I
They're
got the
open.
invitation now. Yeah.
I got an invitation too.
Yeah. I've closed the breakout rooms because most people were not assigned and people were getting lost in cyberspace.
I was kind of alone in one. I was just about to message you.
Yeah. Everybody will be back in 40 seconds. So I don't know what's going wrong with the breakout rooms, but they are not working. We have people lost in cyberspace and a great confusion. So bear with me while we get everybody back and we'll try that again. Femi, great to see you, and fingers crossed you got something useful from the session. Sorry about the technical hitches. I hope that people will be back in the room in about 10 seconds. We'll try that again. Okay. Welcome back. I'm sorry, we got a great confusion going on with the breakout rooms where a lot of people were apparently lost in cyberspace. So quickly, before anything changes, I'm going to open the rooms again. Let's hope they work this time.
Hopefully I get the same person with me.
Hello, are you just joining? Hello, Palumi, are you just joining? How are you doing? People are out in breakout rooms at the moment doing an activity. They'll be back in about 3 minutes. Would you like to join a group and at least you can observe what's going on?
Sure.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Let me add you to room 3. There you go. Hello, Maximilian. What's happening at the moment is that people are out in breakout rooms doing an activity. If you're able to, I'm going to assign you to a group. If you're able to join, please do, and you can at least observe what people are getting up to in the breakout room.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, I'm hoping that's still audible. It's a bit noisy here, so I'm switching to a noise cancelling headset. So that should make the sound a bit better. Fingers crossed everybody's doing the activity at the moment. I'm going to close the breakout rooms and they've got 60 seconds to come back. It will be interesting to see what experience they've had as they've been talking about the shape of their team. Welcome back. The others will be here in just a few seconds, 30 seconds or so. Maurizio, did you manage to find somebody in your breakout room?
Yes, thanks. I was with Posola, so we got to share our imagery.
Excellent. Do you know each other?
No.
That's good.
Yeah.
In that it's often more interesting to start doing this kind of activity with people you don't know, and then do it with people you do know, because yeah, you get a different kind of experience with people you do know and people you don't know.
I agree.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of people back from the breakout rooms. I think nobody's lost in cyberspace. Apologies for the slight technical hitches. Let's hear from a few people. What was your experience of being asked those questions? Omozua, what was your experience?
I'm just unmuting myself. So my experience was, I found it quite interesting because, you know, somebody said relentless aggression when they were asked about what was their team. You know, Anu said sort of, you know, being a bit chaotic. And for me, I felt that my team is like, I feel it like lit up brains, different colors, different energies, but what is special about them is that they are also awakened. And in this way, each brain knows itself, and I think is solid in itself, that it doesn't need to, it allows the other brain to just be lit in its own color and its own power. So I felt that is a kind of harmonious.
So lit up brains, each in its own color, that kind of harmonious.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
I'm curious, did you know that? Did you know that you felt like that about your team 2 hours ago?
Well, I actually operate in that kind of team. You know, I've just never asked these kind of questions, but it has also taken a journey to understand that. That's why at the beginning I said a line of elements in flow, because it can become a circle, it can become a triangle, but I think that elements within anything need to be respected, acknowledged, and there has to be a reciprocal giving and taking. And it's fine like that.
Thank you. So how was it when you were asked these questions in the group for you?
I found it interesting to hear what the others said and how I see the team and what this understanding must mean for different people, because I think the brain is just so like, I want to be safe. And I feel like if an element is not safe within whatever space or within whatever team, we can pretend that it's only that element, or I like to say that particular brain that is a brain, even though it looks like a mushroom. But I think, yeah, because people, but it isn't whatever's happening to that one element does impact every other person in the team. So the results that you want people to perform, you want people to be productive, or you want people to communicate, and you also want people to grow and put in input, does depend very much on what is happening to one element and how that is impacting other elements, but also how those other elements are reacting within that system. And so what is the solution is not to say it's that one element's fault, but that every element within the team has to be acknowledged, recognized, and an equal giving and sharing.
Absolutely. It's so interesting that that's the way you experience this, because one of the things that is useful about these questions and using the questions to understand the diversity within a team is that it can really help people to understand the systemic nature of teams, of organizations, and the fact that one part can affect another part in unpredictable ways.
Yeah.
As well as helping you to understand, you could do this activity with your team.
Yeah.
Take your team through the activity you've just done, and you would discover that each member of the team, even though they were members of the same team, would see it differently.
Yeah.
So it would be surprising if members of the same team, one of them thought it was all about relentless aggression, whereas the other one thought it was all deeply harmonious. But it's not impossible. People have very different experiences. And that makes me want to ask for another person to speak about their experience in that breakout activity. Marcelo, what happened for you?
No pressure, putting me on the spot. Okay. As I was telling my compatriot, that I thought of a team of coaches I work with, and the picture that immediately came to my mind was of a chemical compound, attributes bound by multivalent bonds, in which case the bonds are sometimes stronger and sometimes they're pulling apart. Another attribute, and this is a shout out to a friend of mine who's actually on this call because he'll recognize this team immediately. They are highly combustible. So that was kind of, and the funny part is I didn't think of a team that I am currently on. I thought of a team I was with a couple of years ago, where I shared, the good work with my friend who is on this call. So the fact that he's here made me think of us. So thank you.
Thank you. I love the idea of a very combustible team. Yeah. Oh, and touching on some of the sort of what you said reminds me to comment that some of the people on the call are old enough to remember that it used to be a whole thing about having a system metaphor when you were building software. It's become less of a thing nowadays, but the idea of a system metaphor was recognized as being a really good way of helping people to understand what you were building when it's very intangible. You need it. A metaphor can be a really good way of linking between the intangibility of the noughts and ones that are the raw material that you're working with and the tangibility of actually what the end users require. So these questions can, if you choose to, be really useful for getting into those kind of system metaphors. And here we are in this point of change in terms of working environments. Again, we've got this intangibility. We can no longer just say, well, there's our team. They're sitting in that table in that corner of the office, and therefore they have that physical shape. Now the shape of your team is intangible and different. Any other comments, questions, or observations about what happened in that last activity? Ian?
There was a point when I was asking the questions, I felt like I was just like and tell me more. And using those questions over a while, I started to feel a bit uncomfortable, and I thought I had this desperate urge to throw in a different question and go off script. And I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, because you think, well, the discipline is to allow the words for the other person to come over. But I found it at times, I thought, am I just really irritating this guy, asking these, and what else about it, and what is it, and what else? My God, you know, and I don't know if the guy wants to reply, say, yeah, it was getting on my whatsits, but is that a thing?
Who was it, and would they be willing to comment on whether Ian was getting on their whatsits?
It was actually someone called Happy.
Happy, are you able to open your microphone and comment on whether Ian was getting on your whatsits? I'm not sure if Happy's still on the call, actually.
Oh God, there we go.
If they'd been here, I think the comment would be, no, you weren't. What typically happens is the experience of being asked these questions is very different to the experience of asking them, particularly the first couple of times you do it. The first couple of times people ask these questions, they feel uncomfortable. They think I must sound like a robot. And, oh, I really should put something of myself in and say, oh, what you just said reminds me of whatever. It's very different to be asked these questions. Typically, when you're asked the questions, it feels, as long as the tone is pleasant, it feels like you're being asked curiously to say more about what you just said. It's a trick, but it's quite magical trick. Using the other person's words helps them feel deeply listened to, acknowledged and respected. There's a piece of work, the author's name's gone out of my head, but basically he says he was an FBI hostage negotiator. And what he did was he always repeated the hostage taker's words back to them, used the hostage taker's words. Paraphrase, not paraphrase. He said, that is the nearest thing the FBI has to a Jedi mind trick, because it helps the hostage taker to think that they have been understood and that the other person who is using language like theirs must therefore understand them. It's a trick, a sleight of mouth trick, but it works. Any comments or observations about that, particularly if you were asked these questions? What was your experience of being asked them? Oh, there's Happy.
For me,
sorry,
okay.
Go on.
Oh, Happy is back. Happy.
Yeah.
For me,
no, go on.
Yeah, it's a bit thought-provoking, but at the same time, I want to be very careful of what my response is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you could drop some words that you're not supposed to drop, and it could be used against you, like in the court of law. Yeah, so those are the two sides. Yeah, very thought-provoking. It gets me to think deeper. But at the same time, these are tricky questions, and I have to be very careful the way I respond to it, because it could be used against me.
Yeah.
Well, it also depends on the invitation anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends. It depends on the context, the situation, who's asking, why are they asking, all those kind of things. In today's session, we've just been playing with a couple of examples to explore. But hopefully people have already learned a little bit about how these questions work. Now, I'm going to, shall we try one more activity, or is this all getting too much like hard work? I'm getting one thumbs up, so I'm going to go, let's go one more activity. In which case, you now know what your team is like. Stick with the same team, though you're going to be mixed up in a different group. Given that your team is like that, when it comes to the shape of your team this year, for the rest of this year, or the next 6 months or 12 months, what would you like to happen? Think about that on your own for a moment. And in a moment, I'm going to once again pop you into breakout rooms and invite you to repeat the same activity again. This time, starting with what you would like to happen with the shape of your team in 2021. What kind of? Is there anything else about? Take your turn and use the time that you have. I'm going to reduce the time this time to just 4 minutes plus the countdown timer. Is that okay with everybody? Is there anything else that needs to happen to make this work? Fingers crossed with the technology. I'm going to hit the button. Let's see what happens. Hello, Chika. If you're just joining, people are out in breakout rooms at the moment. If you'd like me to, I'll just add you to a room. If you want to pop into the room to observe what the others are up to, you're very welcome to. So we've just got another couple of minutes in the breakout rooms and then we'll find out what happened. Hello, Neen or Nene. What's happening at the moment is people are out in breakout rooms. They're there for another couple of minutes. Shall I add you to a group? You'll be able to observe what people are up to.
Do you want to add me to any group? Hi.
Yeah, let me add you to a group and you can at least watch what people are up to. Here we go.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Welcome back. Okay, because it's now 1:15 and there's people who are going to want to drop off the call sharply on time, what I'm going to do now, if it's okay with you, is let me do the sort of the closing bit of today's sort of official session, and then we'll close with whatever questions you still have outstanding for me. So let me once again share a link to the slides so that any of the links that you see behind me, you've got them in that slide deck, so that I don't have to run around sharing links afterwards. So if you want to learn more about clean language at a basic level, there is a free ebook linked from the slide there, Your Clean Language Questions Answered. Just put your email address in and download it. That's my sort of quick and dirty, here are the top things to know about clean language and how to apply it in the workplace in organizations, which I think you'll all find useful unless you're already well experienced with this stuff. 2 books that I recommend. Of course, I'm going to recommend my own book, Clean Language, Revealing Metaphors and Opening Minds by Wendy Sullivan and myself. However, for you working in agile teams, I'm going to say you might do better to take the book that's in the middle there, From Contempt to Curiosity by Caitlin Walker. Caitlin has done some astonishing work with groups and teams over the last 20 years. She basically created the work of using clean language with groups and teams, and her book tells that story. She was nearly one of you. She started out as a computer scientist and then changed path and did something else, and then eventually found her way to clean language. Now she's bringing clean language back to agile, and I think that's really very interesting. Some of you might know a character called Carl Scotland. He was in her computer science class way back when. And is a very well-known agilist. So, you know, things all connect up. So clean language, Your Clean Language Questions Answered, Clean Language, Revealing Metaphors and Opening Minds, and From Contempt to Curiosity are 3 things to recommend. If you'd like to find out more about using clean language with groups and teams, particularly to help teams to come together and gel, especially online when things are changing and perhaps disrupted, I do a clean language course called Collaboration Dynamics. We run that course directly with teams, and we teach people to run it with teams. Anu has done that course. It's called Clean Language for Facilitators. And Anu and I have just agreed, details to be confirmed, that Anu's going to help me put together a new group to take that short course. It's the equivalent of a day, but we typically spread it over at least 2 separate days so that people aren't stuck online for a whole day. It's not good for your learning to do that. So Collaboration Dynamics for Facilitators, look out for the details. Yeah, so I can, they're in the links to things are in the slides, and I can't talk and cut and paste the links at the same time. Perhaps somebody who's observing is able to. So as well as Collaboration Dynamics, 2 other things you might want to grab hold of are Rhys McCann's work with remote and hybrid gatherings, meetings and events. We've got a couple of self-paced courses that I think would probably be highly relevant to anyone who's working in a distributed context with groups and teams. First one, Engaging Distant Participants, is all about hybrid meetings, the nightmare which is hybrid meetings, but how to make hybrid meetings better than they would be otherwise. On the slide, you'll find there's a 50% discount voucher with a code. And we also have a self-paced course called Engaging Online Events, which is everything we know about creating highly engaging, interactive events for groups of between 12 and about 300 people. Things like PI planning would fit into that category. Things like big town hall meetings, those kind of things. They don't have to be chalk and talk, particularly with appropriate preparation and enough internet bandwidth. So have a look at those courses if they're of interest. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, I'm easy to find on the internet. As Anu mentioned earlier, I do a weekly link letter. Link to it is there. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook, and hit me up with any additional questions in the days after this class. And with 10 minutes remaining before we officially close, what questions do you now have about all of this? Marcelo.
Thank you. And I'll try to be brief. If you were to try this sort of exercise, because it just fired off in my head, with some senior, and by senior executives, I mean the C-suite. Because I'm thinking actually now of how I could apply this, because I have some issues with some folks that don't talk to each other cleanly. Any thoughts, any recommendations? Even though you don't know who these cast of characters are, any thoughts, any recommendations?
I think when I'm working with senior people, I'm especially careful to explain why I'm doing this work. And I will talk a little bit more theoretically about why metaphor is important, and that metaphor is not just fluffy. Metaphor is actually how human brains do their thing. Metaphor is the stuff of thought. Metaphor is the native language of the unconscious mind. And when we can't not speak in metaphor, we use about 6 metaphors a minute in English, and it's similar in other languages. But by making our metaphors explicit and understanding what we mean by our metaphors, we can reach a greater level of understanding, for example, within a team. So if we're, for example, talking about what kind of agile outside of the software development world, you will find people mean something hugely different than what you would mean as an agile coach. Often you'll find people who believe that agile working means working from home. So you can play some little tiny activity like that. What kind of agile, or even what kind, think of a flower, what kind of flower, to help people understand that what they think everybody knows isn't actually true. That everybody's seeing a different world. And that by being willing to not know and to ask some questions, they will find out a whole lot more about what they don't know that they don't know. Now, of course, there are people who are terrified of not knowing. Hopefully at senior levels, they're fairly few and far between, but there still will be some. So you need to be okay with that, and be okay with the fact that in some organizations, they are relentlessly hostile or relentlessly aggressive, all these other things that are really not pleasant to work with. But if you look at Caitlin's work, where she really talks about moving from this position of contempt, of I know, they don't know, they must be wrong, but instead to curiosity, what must be true for them to have said that? Then you start to open the richness of what your senior team is capable of. I'm on a rant, and I think Anu's trying to interrupt, so I'm going to stop.
Thank you.
No, I'm not trying. Yeah, so I'm not trying to interrupt. I was enjoying what you're saying, and I was thinking, processing in my head, what kind of question would I ask them? So this organization is like what? Or, or this vision, whatever the context or situation is. And I'm going to put a metaphor in the middle. So maybe they are trying to craft a compelling vision for the organization, or this vision is like what, or this product is like what?
Yeah.
Or this issue or this challenge is like what? So yeah, I'm aligning with you. I was just processing type of questions.
Interesting. So if you ask a question like, this product is like what? That's relatively easy for people to answer. If you ask a question like, the future of this organization is like what? That's really hard to answer. The easiest questions for people to answer are the ones that go, this challenge is like what? Or this problem is like what? People find problem metaphors really easily, but that's in itself a danger. Because when you ask these questions about problems, that can be super uncomfortable. You've noticed how quickly they go deep. So my recommendation is when you're starting with these questions is go for the good stuff, go for the positive stuff. It will make everything easier and smoother and more comfortable, even though it's easier to get metaphors for the uncomfortable stuff. I think somebody said I used the metaphor nightmare for hybrid meetings. It's easy to find metaphors like nightmares and traps and brick walls and all that stuff. People find it really easy to do. Instead, make the effort, get your people to make the effort to think, when this goes exactly as we would like, it will be like what? Is there another question? In which case, I'm going to ask you to do another in the chat thing, just to close off that last activity where we talked about the, when it comes to the shape of your team in 2021, what would you like to happen? Could you just write a few words in the chat about your answer to that question? When it comes to the shape of your team in 2021, what would you like to happen? A couple of nice examples there.
Ian is laughing.
Anything else that anyone would like to add to the chat? Now would be a good time to do that. More respect, yeah. Less contempt, more curiosity, more respect. There's a lot to be said for that. Okay, it's now 28 minutes past the hour. If there are no more questions, oh, lots more things being added to the chat. That's what we like to see. Collaboration, transparency, embracing, complete the cycle, focus, lovely stuff. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say or ask? If you want to save the chat, by the way, if you're not familiar with Zoom, perhaps you use Teams at work, at the bottom of the chat on the right-hand side, there are 3 dots. And you click those 3 dots and the thing, save chat, comes up and it will save itself magically to your computer. We'll, I hope, be able to share the slide deck close to where the recording is on YouTube. And when all of that, we need to finish on time. Thank you very much indeed. It's been brilliant working with you all. And yeah, stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Judy. And Marcelo said, I want to thank you, Ms. Rees, Anu for pinging me, and my co-collaborators for today. So this is how we feel, Judy. Some people could not switch on the camera because of internet issue. Zoom takes a lot of bandwidth. So, and I'm really inspired today. This is my third time attending any of your session. And for those that joined today, you'll be receiving a communication from us once we can solidify the dates and pricing for the class, Judy's next class. We'll be in touch with you. So thank you everybody for joining. And for those that joined from Africa, good night. And from Asia as well, I think this is good morning or good afternoon. One of those.
Good
so
middle of the night.
Thank you so much. Yeah, in the middle of the night. Yeah. So
nice
enjoy the rest of today for journey from the US. So thank you so much, Judy. We appreciate you. And thank you for being here and staying here with us despite the connection issue. We've received a lot of emails. People couldn't join. I don't know the problem with Zoom and Zoom connected to Eventbrite. Okwe, can you stop the live recording?
Yeah, I was recording. Can we stop the stop the streaming?
Stop it, and I don't know where to go. Stop streaming. Well, maybe if I close Zoom, it will stop streaming.
It will. Anu, I'm going to drop you an email to talk about what and maybe we just need to set up a call to talk about what we talked about, but we will make something happen.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me. And yeah, I think there are some really exciting possibilities here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so maybe in your communication, how many people can be in the class? That will really determine, yeah. But we'll talk outside this call.
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
stop this thing. Okay. I don't know what to
so we better close the Zoom down.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Cheers then.
much. Bye.
Thanks, Ian. Bye.